and Doug Edwards, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. The purple button on the front will activate your microphone. If you try that now to make sure that it's on, that one is, so is that. Okay. Would you please introduce yourself to the committee, and perhaps through the chair we will field the questions for you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Len Butisi. I'm the Vice Chair of the Humane Society of Durham Region, nonprofit corporation, seven board members, no compensation for anybody. It's all strictly volunteer. May I have a moment to address your two questions? Thank you. The situation with the 60 cats. Hsdr is simply a humane society. We have no jurisdiction whatsoever to go in and investigate. You're confusing us with the Ontario SPCA. So we have no ability whatsoever to interfere with that situation. What we can do is be on the receiving end of that and take in some of the cats that the OSPCA decides to seize or not seize. That's all we can do there. And your second question was the mice eating the wires. This is a completely new board of directors. That board of directors was replaced back in 2013, I think it was. So Doug runs a successful business in Pickering. I run a successful business in Pickering. It's a completely different board of directors that runs the shelter now as a business. We have just turned the page on financial responsibility and are now showing positive performance as of 2018. Operationally, we engaged the Ontario SPCA and the Toronto Humane Society when the board took over and brought the shelter up to proper standards of operations and animal safety and disinfecting and welfare and that sort of thing. So we're happy here to answer any questions you'd like to pose for us.
First, I have Councillor John Gray, and
I think I still have the floor. I had asked if we could invite them forward. Do I not
members
still have
of committee
floor?
go first.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get back to you. Councillor Gray, you have the floor, followed by
Thank you very much.
Mark.
I do appreciate you being here and coming forward. With the Ontario SPCA, that's under some transition now, as I recall. Could you elaborate on that versus what your role would be?
I can. So the Ontario SPCA was responsible for animal enforcement of animal laws, the SPCA Act, and that's the thing that was just under conflict now, and the government has said that the OSPCA does not have the constitutional authority to carry out enforcement as a third party. So the Humane Society of Durham Region is an affiliate of the Ontario SPCA, but it's an independently run organization, as are the other 26 affiliates of the Ontario SPCA. So the only governance that the Ontario SPCA has over any of the affiliates, including Hsdr, is over enforcement. We didn't perform enforcement ourselves. The Ontario SPCA performed enforcement. So what's happening now is that contract with the government has extended to the end of June, I believe, to allow a transitionary period for the enforcement of animal laws to be passed over to police authorities.
So help me out here. So in the future, if we ever get another cat house, who will be responsible?
No. So your bylaws govern that sort of thing, and then if the Ontario SPCA views that animals are in imminent distress, they have the authority till the end of June to go in and take those animals. We would just be the place those animals come to be rescued, saved, and brought back to health and then found adoptive homes.
So are you saying then that the city would then have a role if we did have a situation where we have 60 cats, they're being way underfed, and so ultimately would the city then have jurisdiction through the bylaw enforcement?
Those are your city bylaws that
Okay.
make that determination, right? And the Ontario SPCA is the enforcement arm that comes in and enforces if the animals are in distress, but they don't supersede the your own municipal bylaws.
Okay. Ask Commissioner Diskey to also add to this discussion. Commissioner?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, our responsible pet owners bylaw would come into play at that point, and I believe you're allowed 5 cats and 3 dogs. So anything over that, unless you're a registered rescue group, our bylaw services would intervene at that time.
And what period of time does it take to actually be able to take action? Because, let's say, I'm referring to a situation back in 2002, 2003, but at that time we didn't have any jurisdiction over it, and so the cats were in there starving. The people were about to lose their home, and nobody could do anything.
Through the chair, I'm sure that there would be an order to comply, and there would be a time period for them to comply. It wouldn't have to be immediate, but I would say within 48 to 72 hours.
Well, it's certainly better than what was before. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. I'm glad they've got a new board and they've got a better mind about these things. And I do apologize for having to speak, but that was the reason why I'm very, very reluctant to turn this over. So,
We appreciate their comments. We appreciate the opportunity to correct the
Thank you.
misinformation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gray. Next I have Bradley, Councillor Marks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, or good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming forward to answer some of our questions. Currently, how does the Humane Society handle complaints or concerns from the public about how you sort of manage your affairs in relation to how you deal with animals, really? That's my question. What's the process?
It's a great question. We have customer service representatives that man the desk and our phones during our regular operating hours that are available to the public. And within that period, we're taking phone calls and emails and addressing those in a rapid fashion. So right now, the only interaction we have are for folks that are surrendering animals or are looking to adopt. Any specific complaints that are, as Len mentioned, that go towards or enforcement in terms of the Ontario SPCA Act, those are referred to the Ontario SPCA.
And is there sort of an ombudsman right now that comes and visits your facilities to make sure that they're up to code and up to provincial standards and municipal standards, really?
We follow the standards that are set by the general guidelines within Canada. We were actually the first to adopt those updated standards. I think they were back in 2014. We were one of the first shelters in Ontario to adopt those standards. We do expect to have an overall shelter inspection performed. I think that would be a precedent in terms of what would need to be done before we would take on any additional services.
I guess my follow-up question to that would be, would the Humane Society be confident to sort of absorb some of the services that the animal services in Oshawa absorb right now?
We're extremely confident. We have the capacity and the staff, and we have a strong support system with Toronto Humane Society and the Ontario SPCA, and a strong foster network.
Would you be open to members of council coming for a visit to
Absolutely.
see your
Welcome
facility?
that. Yeah, absolutely.
The Humane Society would then, the way I understand things, would appoint a liaison. I guess that would be board appointed, and the city would appoint a liaison, and it would be sort of a submission from the Humane Society to talk to our liaison and to ensure that that rigorous care is being followed.
Yes, so the Hsdr would appoint a liaison that would be available to the City of Oshawa at any given time for the purposes of reporting.
Gentlemen, we're kind of verging into the details of the closed document,
excuse
so
me.
I think
Excuse
we'll
me,
have to
Chairman.
scoot away from that.
I guess lastly, are there any awards that, you gentlemen are from the Whitby facility, correct? Have you won any awards? Does the Whitby facility have an excellence award or anything that's been awarded to you?
Our shelter manager, Danielle Johnson, is here, and she's won some awards for performance. There are no awards that I'm aware of that are handed out to shelters.
Okay.
Most of them are nonprofits that struggle to survive and continue to do what they're doing.
So you gentlemen stand by the care that the Humane Society gives to animals that are in need.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marks. I have Councillor Neal next.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Have you, through the chair, have you had an opportunity to peruse the Service Oshawa's records of what has been called into from the citizens of the city in regards to animal care's concerns?
Are you talking about volumes of animals? Sorry, could you restate?
Never mind. It's all right. You've answered my question, I think, there. And in regards to the vehicles are you taking them over?
I'd ask Commissioner Diskey to answer in at this point, please. He'll pass. Carry on, please.
Thank you. And in regards to the other animal support groups, have you consulted them in any way?
Which animal support groups are you referring to?
Yeah, I'll leave that one.
Sorry, there can't be any outbursts from the gallery.
There should be.
Excuse me. If one more outburst, and I'll ask security to take you out. Sorry. Well, we'll just adjourn the meeting after that until you do. But carry on, please, Councillor Neal.
He hasn't got a clue. This Bertuzzi guy.
Yeah, I'll just leave my question. What was my... Yeah, I had one. I had another one. I forget exactly what it was right now. Thanks.
Okay. Any other members of committee? Councillor Hurst, way back, I think you had your hand up, and I forgot to get back to you. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I don't have any questions for the representatives from the Humane Society at this point in time. All of my questions have been asked and answered today.
Thank you.
But I have another question outside of this.
Thank you, and I apologize for not
No
getting
worries.
back to you earlier. I'm
Thank
back
you.
to Councillor McConkey, please.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming forward. You had indicated a lot of the nonprofits just struggled to get by, that you've got your financials now in order. So the building that you're in, it's fully paid off. You financed that yourselves?
So the building does have a mortgage facility on it, and but that's basically from a financing standpoint a decision that the board made.
And did you receive grants from the town of Whitby and the region of Durham along the way?
As this board has sat, no, there have been no grants from the town of Whitby.
But when this board came into being in the new premises, or
That's correct.
at that time, and how long has that been?
Since 2013.
2013. So the town of Whitby actually gave no grant money to the setup of the new building?
That was before our time. It's my understanding, although I wasn't serving on the board, it's our understanding that there were government grants for the building.
Okay. And there's still a mortgage. And have you engaged the independent project managers to build an addition?
Yes, that's correct.
And what timeline are you looking at for that construction?
It's to be determined. We haven't decided on a specific date, just as we need to raise or put our capital campaign forward and allow for the required amount of time in order before we would actually break ground.
So how long has this been going on at this point?
Planning's been going on for about 6 to 12 months, and we launched our capital campaign at our gala last October.
Yeah, I'd heard from a veterinarian, actually, that this had been going on, I think, a couple years.
No.
The design and a couple women that I know. Anyhow,
No, we're happy to share that documentation with you, what this structure will look like.
yeah, maybe when we do a tour, that would be great. What do you do about feral cats? Do you take any in?
I'm going to defer to Danielle if she can come up and answer how we handle feral cats.
For the purposes of the meeting, could you kindly introduce yourself and your role and function with Hsdr, please?
Sure, yes, my name is Danielle Johnson. Oh, is this on? Okay, my name is Danielle Johnson. I'm the manager of shelter operations.
How long have you been with the Durham?
I've been
Humane
with the Humane
Society?
Society of Durham Region for about 5 years.
5 years. And I was asking about feral cats. What's your policy? Do you have some people that actually go out from your facility? Do you?
No, we do not.
No,
We
and-
do not go out and trap feral cats, no.
You don't trap, but you accept them?
We do not accept them at the shelter. We have a foster program and a number of rescues that we work with. If we had a feral mom and kittens, and we socialize the kittens, and we accept feral kittens into our program, but typically we're referring them to other organizations.
Whereabouts?
Other organizations within Durham, as well as the Toronto Humane Society.
You mentioned, actually, I think it was Len that had mentioned the Toronto Humane Society. What about the Peterborough Humane Society? I understand they're opening something. Is it this month? Are you aware of their new facility that's supposed to be opening or was supposed to open in April?
I don't have too much information about that. No, I'm
So
sorry.
the Humane Societies don't really have a lot of, I guess, newsletter that goes out between them or association meetings or anything. They're pretty much on their own, are they?
Well, we definitely have a relationship with a lot of different humane societies, as we all are affiliates of the Ontario SPCA.
Okay. I'm not too familiar with the organizations. I just know the Toronto Humane Society was at one time in the news in not a very complimentary way. There were problems, I think, putting animals down was, yeah, if you don't mind, thank you.
So we are completely unrelated to the Toronto Humane Society other than we're like-minded and we work together as partners when needed. And again, the board of directors that's in place now, their CEO, Jacques Messier, was not in place at the time. So he took over and that was cleaned up. They did have charges laid against them through the OSPCA Act.
So if we're giving our services over to an organization like you, the public needs to know what type of accountability.
Councillor, mention of any transferable services is part of the closed agenda. You can certainly ask your questions of the role and function of the Hsdr.
Well, yeah, if I could read what's in the public report on our agenda, it spells out something that I think has got a lot of people alarmed, and that's why we were receiving letters and people are attending this morning.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
So we
Go
have
ahead.
no intention working independently on a complete outsourced basis. We will work in partnership with Oshawa and take our direction from the City of Oshawa, and we will report regularly to the City of Oshawa.
So there would be a period of, quarterly reports or attendances, that sort of thing you envision? Okay,
Correct.
that sounds fair. But just the actual workings of the operation that we have now, I don't know how it could be replicated. As Councillor Neal mentioned, I mean, the public calls into Service Oshawa. They say, there's an animal sighting here, or there's a dead animal here. And all that, we've trained the public to know that phone number and call in and email Service Oshawa. So now we're putting another layer into, okay, somebody's saying to us, what do I do? I've just had a sighting of a coyote on my street. And we say, call I'm having trouble
Humane
with your
Society.
name. Yeah, I keep wanting to say Durham Region Humane Society. Is that what we do?
We've been called lots of names.
Yes,
That's fine.
okay.
Yeah, no, so that would be, I believe, if I'll defer to Ron there, but I believe that would be your operations people that take care of roadkill and those sorts of things.
Okay, so
we don't have people that go out and trap animals.
So we would still need to be doing that ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, we're not, bylaw's not what we do.
Okay.
It's animal care, that's what we do.
And so what we have now are people dropping off their, I guess, pets that they're not able to look after anymore. And how's it different with you? Are you taking pets as well?
We primarily take pets as when folks surrender them for whatever reason. Some people surrender them for financial purposes in the event that, say, an owner has passed and the family can't care for that pet. So we have the exact same process that would be able to support the surrender of stray animals that were potentially found roaming the streets. So all of those processes are in place today.
Okay, but you also get animals from elsewhere because I'm just familiar. My sister got a pet from you last year, and she said there was one that came in from Caribbean island, I think. So where are they? Who's bringing those in?
So we have a program that we bring them in when our animal population, our dog population goes down and we have capacity. We'll help take dogs from northern rescues and we'll help take dogs from other rescues, including Caribbean Island, and I'm personally involved with some of that. So when there's capacity at the shelter, we've done such a good job with spay-neuter that the populations are very manageable, and from time to time we have capacity and we'll bring them in when we have capacity. But local animals take precedence.
Okay, so, and you mentioned spay neuter. Are you doing spay neuter low cost at your
So
clinic?
we don't have the authority to do that right now. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is getting accreditation to be able to perform low-cost spay neuter for the community. Right now, we only have authority to perform those on our own animals.
And when you say you have authority to do that, do you have a vet on staff?
We do.
One, two?
We have one on staff, and we have access to many others.
And so they actually are not working outside your facility? They're actually there on a regular basis?
They're there on a regular. Our vet is there on a regular basis, but the procedures are performed off-site because we're not accredited for that level of procedure yet.
Okay, so what you're needing to build with the IPC, or Independent Project IPM,
Right.
is a facility for a veterinary clinic.
Correct.
Okay, and how many square feet do you have now, and how many are you expecting to add on?
That I don't have off the top of my head, unless Cindy or Danielle. No. We can get back to you on that. You'll see the plans. We're happy to share the
Yes.
plans with you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McConkey. I'm back to Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just remembered what the other question was I was going to ask that I forgot. How does a councillor liaise with your organization? Like, if I have a complaint?
We will make ourselves available to the councillors at a
Well, say it's
leadership
on
level.
okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. Say it's on a Saturday, Sunday.
You'll have my cell phone.
So I'll be calling your cell phone? At
24/7.
like 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah,
Or whatever time?
sure.
It's always available.
If anyone around this table has an issue that they need dealt with, Doug and I will be available.
Okay, it's a skunk, whatever.
Well, that would be your bylaw.
Injured skunk. So, yeah, that's the process I'm asking. Like, I'll just give an example. An injured skunk in someone's basement stairwell, they have a thing that they come out in the spring and then they get sometimes trapped in a basement window well. Can't get out of it. The constituent calls me. I do what? Call you on your cell?
No, Ron, do you want to explain that process?
Commissioner Diskey?
Through the chair, currently that would be a bylaw process. Service Oshawa would be contacted, or security here at City Hall, and then bylaw would be dispatched.
And bylaw would look after that issue?
That's correct.
And then what happens to the animal? Like, is there an animal person on bylaw that would handle that animal?
Through the chair, can you expand the question? Like, what's wrong with the skunk? Is he injured? Is he dead? Is he
Injured, or he's trapped in a window well in someone's house.
Okay, so the current procedure would have bylaw attend to it, assess the situation, determine whether the animal is can be saved, and if it can be saved, then it would be transported to animal services or and then looked after. We would have staff come in for that.
Say it's not injured, it's fine, but it's still trapped in the window well.
Through the chair, I believe that then becomes a private property issue.
Well, what our animal services used to do, they used to go out there, and when I was present, the animal services would put a board down, the skunk would come out. But they knew how to handle the skunk as to not to raise any alarms. That's what I saw the City of Oshawa do. So in other words, we really don't know what we do in that occasion, and that's one of many issues that come up as a councillor. So I'm just saying through you, Mr. Chair, you better be very wary of this process, and everybody in here better be aware that if there's gaps in it, and there's service levels and gaps, we as the councillors will be responsible for that in this whole council.
I have to step out. I do apologize. I have a municipal event at 12 o'clock, so I'm going to excuse myself. Thank you very much for your delegation. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I greatly appreciate it. I do apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank you, gentlemen, and for your staff to be here. I know the work you do. Former board member. I know how difficult the challenge is. If I had the time, I would be happy to. Just for a couple of questions off the top, just so I can get the lay of the land. What is your current animal capacity at your shelter?
So the capacity at the shelter can range depending on the types of animals that you have come in, adult cats versus kittens, but currently we have 14 dog kennels, so space for 14 dogs, adult dogs. Again, it goes up if you have more puppies. And then we also have space for about 56 adult cats. Obviously that goes up. If you have kittens, so litters of kittens, that increases as well. Plus, at the shelter, all of our cages are portalized, so we actually have double-sided cages. So if needed in an emergency, we could close off those and double that capacity.
And I would assume you have a section for animals that catch odd diseases now that as animals want to do
Yes.
to secure them from the other animals?
Yes, isolation.
And how much isolation spaces do you have?
We have 10.
Ms. Johnson, could you pull that microphone directly in line with your mouth? Thank you very
Sure.
much.
We have 4 cats. We have 10 isolation cages, 2 separate rooms. Actually, I'm sorry, we have 3 isolation rooms with, one is actually designed as a kitten nursery, but can also be used as an isolation room. So we have 3 rooms totaling in 14 cages, and we have 3 dog isolation kennels. But again, the way that our shelter is set up, we can actually expand that so that there's about 7 of those.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I wonder if it's in order at this point, if I could just ask Mr. Diskey just to explain how much capacity the current animal shelter has.
In order. I'll direct the question to Commissioner Diskey, who may want to hand off from there. But Commissioner, you want to start us off, please?
Through you, Chair Kerr, I'd like to call up Kathy to speak to those questions. She's more knowledgeable than Beth or I.
Good morning, Ms. Pittman-Felton. Could you kind of give us your answer to this question, please?
Good morning, everyone. Saw this coming. I was jotting down the numbers. Currently, we have the same as Danielle spoke to. Our capacity would change depending on puppies, kittens. What are we actually looking at? Aggressive dogs, feral cats. But on a general basis, we could handle approximately 30 dogs. And then with regards to cats, we have about 30 that we could house in the back. Once again, that could be a mom with 7 kittens, which would account for 1. So the numbers could go up, but the number of cages would actually be 30, and we have about 40 that we can cycle through our adoption program at any given time. We also have a very successful off-site adoption program, so our adoption room is constantly flowing out into the community, which allows us to move our cats from the back to the front pretty efficiently.
And you have isolation rooms as well in case an animal.
We do.
Okay. Those are my questions to our staff. My rest of the questions are to the Humane Society. To the Humane Society, are all the staff working in the Humane Society animal health technicians? Sorry?
Musical chairs. Here we go.
Need more chairs.
Can you define animal health technician?
Do they have a certificate of animal health technician from a community college?
The majority of our staff have completed animal care worker certificates from Durham College.
Okay, they have an animal care worker, not an animal health technician.
It's not called animal health technician to my knowledge.
Okay. You are a registered charity. That's my understanding. Have
Yes,
been
we
for
are.
many years. Are your financial records open to the public?
Yes, they are.
Would you be able to provide, say, the last 2 or 3 years
Yes, we can.
records to the city?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is the one that it's could be, I guess, difficult to me to understand, because I went through this many, many times on the board. Which is superior, the city's bylaw or the Humane Society's policies, when there's a conflict between the two?
Play the music.
The Humane Society has no external-facing policies. They're all internal-facing policies. So your question probably would be the Ontario SPCA Act versus your municipal bylaws.
Okay, we have currently a policy on euthanasia that we have established as the city's response from our shelter. I'm assuming you have a similar policy at your shelter.
We do.
Yep. They don't always match.
Ours is for terminal illness and no possibility of positive outcome. We'd be happy to share that with you as well.
So if an animal it just simply cannot be socialized for whatever reason, they are put down, or what happens to them?
We try every possible alternative, such as the use of rescues, training before that decision is made, and that decision isn't made lightly. It's made with Danielle, the veterinarian, and a couple other board members.
That was the same policy I think I had last time. I just want to make sure ours is a little bit different from yours. I will say every animal group has a different euthanasia policy.
We go as far as if there's not a positive outcome, and that's the only alternative for a particular animal, the board members themselves have paid to send animals out to rescues and sanctuaries that are outside of the scope of the Humane Society. So we don't use donor dollars for that. We pay for that ourselves personally.
Okay. The service area of the Humane Society Durham region, is that all of Durham region?
It is.
So all the animals come from anywhere in Durham region?
Correct.
And that's the 14 and the 56 for all of Durham region?
14 and the
14
numbers, yeah.
dog kennels, 15 adult cat
Correct.
cages. So that's for the entirety of Durham region?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any other service agreements with any other municipality?
We don't.
At this time? Okay. Are your shelter policies available publicly?
I don't know if they're published, but we're happy to share that with you as part of your due diligence.
Okay. You indicated, and that the two board members that are present are from Pickering. Do representatives on your board come from all across Durham region?
I'm actually from Whitby.
You're from Whitby? Oh, sorry.
in Ashburn.
So you said you run a business in Pickering?
The business is in Pickering.
You're in Ashburn. Okay, so
Correct.
one in Pickering, one in Ashburn.
And we have a third board member here with us as well, Cindy Bennett, behind me.
Okay. Are there any board members from Oshawa?
Karen, yeah.
Just one out of 7?
Right.
Okay. Would your board consider, if we did transfer services to you?
We can't delve into that.
I'm just asking a hypothetical at this point.
Well, no hypotheticals, because it relates to the agreement, so, or the proposed
agreement says
The
that?
proposed agreement.
You just said that
Your
can we
comments relate to that, so you can ask a different question, please.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at the agenda, and the agenda says to enter an agreement with Humane Society of Durham Region.
Still
So I'm
proposed.
asking, my question is if this action were taken, would you consider dedicated Oshawa board members, because you would be acquiring a service that you don't have with any other municipality?
We would consider adding to our board of directors.
Okay. All right, and I'm sure I got all my questions answered here. The last one is, in your expansion, will that change your capacity for animals, or is it simply administrative and treatment space? Is there actually going to be additional capacity?
It will increase our capacity as well.
And what will it increase to?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that information. Do we have that, Andy? Okay. Well, we're happy to share that with you when we provide the drawings.
Okay. The reason I ask that, one question I'm looking at, I don't want to see a reduction in service. So I'm trying to look at the point as if we're limiting our service, potentially, what impact and what existing or potential service will replace it.
You're increasing our capacity, and we have the strength of the capacity of the OSPCA affiliates behind us, as well as Toronto Humane Society. Those are all very strong relationships, and we leverage those organizations and their capacity now, actually, as we need to.
Okay. And the last question is, as a public agency, public charity, would you have any objection to us holding a public meeting to ask the community?
No.
All right. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. I have no speakers from the committee and no further speakers from visiting councillors. So we have a motion on the floor from Councillor Giberson. Councillor Neal?
Since we heard from, can we hear from other members of the, that are here under other interested residents in the city of Oshawa?
That would
Can-
constitute a public meeting, and at this particular point in time, the desire was to hear from the organization that's spoken about in agreement. So at this particular point in time, we can't entertain a public delegation.
No, I was just going to ask a few questions to what their concerns was, because I really...
By the sounds of the referral?
Due to the in-camera nature, that we're limited to what we can say, what we can't say, but... I mean, some of the questions I had were not part of this report, but I did know that they're interested, and I was just wondering if they could be given a fair opportunity to come to the table also.
And I think that's what this motion will
Yeah, well, that was my previous motion as well, so I know what the motion's going to be.
This one's a little different. Thank you. Councillor Giberson, could you read your motion out at this particular point in time,
yes,
please?
that report CS 1931 be referred back to staff for further information and to produce a version of the report for public consumption. And just to clarify on the report for public consumption, members of the public will be able to request to speak as delegations to matters that are on the agenda. Is that not correct? Okay, thank you.
I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Like, what does public consumption mean?
Sorry?
There's going to be two reports, one in camera and one public?
Not to my knowledge. That's to be determined.
It says one for public consumption. So will it be one for the public and one in camera?
I'll ask the mover to...
The intent of my referral is essentially to make as much of this, and not only that, but there's the further information element of the referral, but also to take the closed report and move as much of that into a public report as can.
So a redacted report.
Well, I think just anything that doesn't include labor relations and employee negotiations.
Call the question on the referral. All those in favor? And none opposed. Thank you very much. We've concluded with the closed discussion agenda. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Councillor Marks, all those in favor? None opposed. Thank you very much for your participation today. Committee, visiting councillors,